Speak to Mohanad Hage Ali in Beirut now, and he's a fellow at the Carnegie Middle East Center and has written about Hezbollah. Hezbollah proving a point here, but not really keen on a protracted conflict, do you think?
Yes, Hezbollah is not keen on a conflict. He's proving a point which is basically part of the balance of deterrence that Hezbollah has put in place since 2006. We strike in Lebanon, we strike back in Israel, and we won't allow this balance of deterrence to be messed with in any way, because this messes with the peace in the country. But at the same time, Lebanon is in a very precarious position. The country is going through a difficult fiscal position, and it's also facing challenges from the U.S. Sanctions on Iran and on Hezbollah. So the party has some financial issues itself. While it wants to keep or save face in the balance of deterrence rhetoric that has been maintaining over the past few years, it doesn't want to engage in a full conflict with Israel, given that this would lead to the full destruction of Lebanese Shia areas, at least, and also some infrastructure in Lebanon, which Lebanon and the Lebanese Shias don't really have the capacity to rebuild financially. And there's no regional or international donor who's willing to engage in such a reconstruction project. So no one wants war on the Lebanese side. And I think also on the Israeli side, Israel is 2 weeks away from national elections. And I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu wants to jump on such a gamble, so to speak.
They say that he is a gambler, though. So, but of course, he has other things to focus on. Returning to Lebanon and to Hezbollah, is Hezbollah itself facing a difficult time because of less financial support from Iran, if everything we read is true, in terms of how it can escalate and how much it wants to escalate with Israel? Not now, but possibly in the future.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Hezbollah, at the end of the day, is a much larger organization than that in 2006. Hezbollah has grown its institutions immensely, has grown its services to the population it caters for. So I think the financial difficulties that it's going through due to the U.S. sanctions. I mean, the United States just a few days ago has ended a Lebanese Shia bank, a Lebanese bank owned by a Shia businessman, just because it's dealing with Hezbollah. Such is the pressure, the extent of the pressure that the United States is putting on Lebanon, its financial system, and it's also on the Lebanese Shia organization, just to reshuffle what it sees as an Iranian overstretch in the region. This maximum pressure push has certainly weakened the organization in Lebanon in terms of the financing to its allies, how strongly it can maneuver in Syria. We've heard reports on Hezbollah not being able to pay some of the salaries of militias in Syria. We've seen reports about cuts and financial difficulties that's facing here in Lebanon, and certainly the welfare system that it had established, and is basically the base of the party's growing popularity, and I think its capacity to mobilize as much in the Lebanese Shia community as it used to. This is being affected by the U.S. sanctions.
And very briefly, Mohanad Hage Ali, just a brief word about Hariri. How weak is Hariri's position as prime minister in Lebanon?
It's definitely in certain instances when Hezbollah jumps on such an escalation with the Israelis, that the prime minister and I think the rest of the executive branch of government feels so weak. I mean, how is it that such an organization, which has not been elected by the Lebanese people, decides to embark on such a dangerous path without consulting at least with the government? So I think he is in a difficult position, but at the same time, he's counting on his allies, who happen to be also Hezbollah's allies, the FPM, the party of the Lebanese president, who are putting pressure on Hezbollah to not escalate the situation, given the Lebanese economic difficulties and the challenges lying ahead. and that Lebanon has much bigger priorities than the jump on a war with Israel, to which we know no end, to be honest.
Thank you very much indeed for that analysis, Mohanad Hage Ali in Beirut. Thank you.